Well, let's see how this goes. This is kind of inspired by a video from The Market Sniper, a YouTube account that I was not familiar with until a short while ago when someone sent it to me. But what am I talking about in this video? I thought I'd share some thoughts here about what's happening. He talks about the digitization of the world, something I've been talking about for decades. I'm sure he has as well. But the thing that's particularly disturbing is what I said years ago. I made a joke over 20 years ago that the way things were going with the military making us pay for things that the military owes us as service members in uniform. I mean, it's not our responsibility to repair our battle wounds. That's the government's responsibility. It's not our responsibility to feed troops in the field and buy our own food. That's the government's responsibility. But that seems to get lost on our government, and I could see where this was headed over 2 decades ago. What am I talking about specifically? I'm talking about a statement I made in jest and made it over the years that it'll come a time in the military when we're in combat and you're wounded and the medic will come up. You'll call for a medic or a corpsman in the Navy, Marines. They'll come up to treat you and they'll say MasterCard or Visa. You're gonna have to pay for your treatment. You know, that was kind of a joke, and I said that in jest, but it was serious. I mean, the things that we were losing that we should be getting in uniform, retirement, medical care, dental care, eye care, all evaporated now, coming out of our own pockets. And I saw that coming decades ago, sadly. But I stayed in the Army for nearly 4 decades, so I wound up on the short end of that stick and knew it long before it happened. But what am I talking about now? Recently, I traveled to the United Kingdom and I experienced something that's been frustrating me for the past couple of years here in America. Now, a lot of sports venues before the pandemic were trying to switch customers over to digital tickets. The Las Vegas Golden Knights only offer digital tickets. And what I have to say about that, that's just pure crap. It's crap. Those who go to games, particularly if you're introducing someone to a sport for the first time, it's a lifelong memory, something you want to cherish, something you want to remember. And the tickets can be keepsakes. I have every single ticket from every minor league baseball game I've gone to since I moved back to the States from Ethiopia a few years ago, as well as all my World Cup tickets. Well, not anymore, folks, not anymore. The 2023 Rugby World Cup is all digital tickets. That's crap, total crap. And you're going to screw us out of memories for things that we deserve to remember because of your greedy focus on things. So you can have will call tickets. We're happy to pick them up at stadiums. But something else happened in the past 20 years, the bastardization of our currency with quantitative easing. Printing of currency, digitally printing, not actual printing, just adding money to the money supply. You've got the M1, the M2, and the M3 money supply, just adding money to it without actually doing anything. And now, what have we seen during the pandemic? When people weren't out shopping, they weren't out in stores, they weren't out buying things, what do we see? We see all over. There's a shortage of coins in America. How could there be a shortage of coins when nobody's actually out shopping during the pandemic for the most part, people staying at home? So all this stuff going on digitally. So how do we wind up with a shortage of coins? Well, we wind up with a shortage of coins. It's an intentional shortage, one that's precipitated by our government intentionally to transition us to a digital economy, purely digital. Now, I'm like Inspector Gadget. I've adopted all technology early. I've had everything under the sun long before most people do. I test everything out, MP3 players, HTML, browsers, laptops, iPads, you name it. I've always been there ahead of the crowd. So I have nothing against technology. I love technology. But the reality is this, is that the tangible physical experience of handheld currency is something that they're trying to take us away from. Why? Well, they can easily manipulate what's in your account. It can disappear in an instant. It can be wiped out by a nuclear blast. That's right. Electromagnetic, wipe it out. So I was in the UK and I was at Twickenham. I wanted a bottle of water. I was dehydrated. I finally found a water point later in the day. I didn't realize there was one. Of course, I spent the whole day there 2 days in a row. But on the second day, I finally came across a water point from Guinness. They put out a fountain to get water. I wish I'd known about it sooner. I didn't see it. That's my error. But I wanted to buy a bottle of water. It was just £1. That's a reasonable price at a place like Twickenham. But I put a coin up on the shelf. Legal tender in the United Kingdom. A crown coin. £1. They refused to accept it. They only take plastic. Only take plastic. Why do they only take plastic? Well, here's the thing about plastic, folks. People easily get addicted to plastic and don't pay attention to what they're spending. And they run up bills. And they wind up becoming debt slaves to credit card debt, or they drain their bank accounts with a debit card. Now, I'm not one of those people. I'm conscious of what I spend on my credit card, and I pay those bills off monthly. But a lot of people aren't. The majority of people aren't. And this perpetuates the debt slavery that people want. They want serfs who are embedded forever in debt slavery. So there you go. Now, that was frustrating. Legal tender in my pocket. I was here in the States and same sort of thing. People don't want to accept currency. Well, right on the bill it says legal tender for all transactions. Merchants are obliged to accept your coins and your paper money in the United States. They don't have an option. Yet they try to get you to use cards. Why? Banks make a lot of money off of those cards. You're not making money. Now, if you're a premium customer and you've got a great record, great track record, great credit, they might give you a few perks like, a cash return on what you spend, but spending $100 to get 1 or 2% back, that's hardly something that you should pursue. It's just a nice thing for if you happen to pay your bills. Anyway, folks, this is kind of inspired by the market sniper, someone I hadn't heard of before, and I just want to share this. We've spent the last 20 years denigrating our currency here in the United States with quantitative easing, flooding the money supply, cheapening the value of it. If it wasn't for that, the euro would have collapsed about a decade ago when Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Ireland were in jeopardy. The Germans bailed them out. But if the United States actually had a sound currency and not one that was barely limping along owing to quantitative easing and the prolific spending of our Congress and our chief executives, the euro would have collapsed. There are only 2 real reserve currencies left in the world. The days of the British pound, the Swiss franc, the Deutsche Mark, the Japanese yen, the dollar being the reserve currencies are over. Today, it's the dollar and the euro. Despite the claims the Chinese renminbi or yuan is reserve currency, that's just total crock and manure. Nobody's buying that crap. And those who buy it are never going to see anything from it. The only reserve currencies today, because of the volume of trade and financial transactions, and partly because they pushed this to digital and people are forced to do this stuff, is the dollar and the euro. So the health of the dollar is a concern for the world. It affects inflation for all of us. It affects our livelihoods and our safety. People talk about fiat money. Well, we're definitely in the age of fiat money with governments just making money up and printing it all the time. Look at the inflation you see now. A ticket that would have cost me $250 just 3 years ago before the pandemic, $642 to fly for an hour and a half. And that's after an airline inconvenienced me with a 14-hour layover in Philadelphia. I could almost walk to my destination in the amount of time it takes to fly for that privilege of flying at a ridiculously inflated price of nearly 300% in a couple years. Folks, the elites that run this world want serfs, and they're getting serfs. That's their intent. That's what they're achieving. It's time we all wake up and pay attention to what's going on around us. Now, for the amateur economists out there, this boomer needs a lesson in economics. I've taught economics. I know economics, I understand economics. The fact that what I say doesn't comport with what you believe doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it incorrect. It just means that you have a thin skin and you're unwilling to listen to a cogent debate. Now, I'm happy to listen to debates on this, but insults that will come from videos are unnecessary. Anyway, folks, think about it. Think about it. Inspired by the Market Sniper. Cheers, everybody.